Okay, so this week, for the first time ever, I learned how to wire up a double socket. But I wouldn't have done this if I hadn't had an electrician with me. I'd also like to say that this video is not a tutorial, just treat it as a vlog. Electric should only be tackled by either professionals or somebody competent. So I'm going to leave disclaimers throughout this video just in case, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And something that wasn't included in this video, because the electrician had already done it, was make sure everything was turned off and safe. I'll leave a couple of links to other videos below, so keep on watching if you want to see how I learned some tips and tricks along the way. So firstly, I'll leave a list of the electrician's tools below. We've got some side cutters, a screwdriver and some wire strippers. And now he's teaching me how to cut an earth cable, which is roughly the length of a box and an extra inch, also known as a rat's tail. So on the back of the double socket, it tells you which side is live and which is neutral. And apparently the live and neutral aren't always in this position, so you always need to check. And the brass one is for earth. I also learnt the valuable saying, brown to blue, blue to pieces. So that's what could happen if you get things wrong. And now I'm straightening them out. The electrician had curled them up inside so they didn't get damaged while they were plastering work and stuff like that. And then used the end of a screwdriver just to clear out any of the plaster debris. And in the very corner, there's a screw where the rat's tail has to go in, which then later connects to the socket. Then my next lesson is to side cut each of these cables. And the cut is the length of the side cutters, straight in the middle. And the earth cable is in the middle, is always bare unless it's in a flex where it needs to be coated. And in this case, brown is live, blue is neutral, but the colours can depend on what cable you've got. Also, the earth is usually smaller than the other wires, but the conductors, the live and the neutral, have to be equal. It just makes the cable smaller. So now I need to remove the wire cover, and you clamp the earth wire with the side cutters and pull it down while holding the cable cover. Then remove the earth and neutral as well, and then very carefully snip off the cover. So now it's my turn. Snip the middle of the cable, pull it apart slightly, pull down the earth cable a little bit, which is the thinner one in the middle, grip it with some side cutters, and while holding the rest of the cable, pull the earth down, which also splits the cable cover. And I'd go down to the bottom.
It's got to be within that box. That grey stuff has got to be, when you finish, it's got to be within that box.
Then be absolutely careful to snip away at the cover, making sure you don't damage the wires. I had so many repetitive questions just to absolutely double check that I was learning this correctly. Now we're spreading apart the brown live on the right, the blue neutral on the left. And we've done that for both of them, so the blue are together, the brown are together. So before we cut our wires down, I'm now getting the lesson never to cut them too short, because sometimes if you want to change a socket, the live and neutral on the front could be reverse. So it's best to leave yourself enough room and it can then reach to the opposite side. So I'm holding in the corner to the length of the box and then adding another inch and then cutting the excess off with some side cutters. Also, if you leave too much there, those wires have got to go somewhere and it can be difficult to put the front cover back on. So again, with the opposite side, you can see the top corner is the length of the box plus an inch. And now I'm also putting the earths at the same side as the neutral. That's because it's that side at the back of the socket. So again, the length of the box plus an inch. And the next job was to cover the earth cables with something he called a green sleeve. Don't forget, any proper terminology, pop them in the comments below. Hopefully it will help other people. and I need to slide it on, push it to the very bottom, and once it's on, bend it over at the top of the cable, pull it back ever so slightly or completely off, and cut it 1/2 inch shorter than where it is at the fold. So when you push it back on, you've got that little bit of copper earth cable exposed. So now it's my turn again. And this is when my memory card was full. Great. And then my first time using some wire strippers. Wow, I like that. I think this tool is cool. I stripped off about 1 centimetre off all of the neutrals and the live cables. And apparently if you haven't stripped off enough, it can be hard to strip off even more. And that's because the grippers grip hold of the cable on both sides of the strippers to cut into it. And this one here, I didn't cut off enough, so the electrician's putting it back on and pushing down on the other side to let it grip hold of the cable to remove the excess. So we've got all the wires sorted. I've now got a screwdriver and I'm unscrewing where those cables need to go at the back of the socket. But don't completely unscrew it off because apparently they're a devil to get it back in. So I unscrewed it just until I could just about see the screw thread. And I'm doing that for the live and the neutral. On this one, the earth was already unscrewed. So I'll put that to one side and then unscrewed the screw in the very far corner of the box. And now the rat's tail has gone in. And then I'm screwing it until I feel it getting tight and then give it a final 1/4 turn and give it a slight tug test. That's done. We're moving on to the live. Again, we're making sure the wires are grouped together, and now I'm slotting in the brown live cables into the live screw hole at the back of the socket. And if you can still see some exposed copper at the end of those cables while they're in, apparently you don't want to see that. So I had to remove them, and the electrician is just snipping off a little bit more with the side cutter before I continue again. And now I couldn't see any exposed copper. And then repeat the exact same thing with the blue neutral cables to the neutral screw hole at the back of the socket. The other thing I was also told was just tighten it until you feel it bite and then a 1/4 turn again because copper is soft and you don't want to damage it. And then again, another tug test at the back to make sure it's definitely firmly in place. And then the final cables we need to put in are the 3 earth cables into that brass earth screw hole. Apparently these are easier to work with because there's a gap where you can just see whether the earth cables have all gone in together. Also the rat's tail is slightly thicker than the other one, so we're putting that last in towards the top and then tightened it up and an extra 1/4 turn and a tug test. So I'm now getting the lesson of pushing the socket up and then go downwards so the cables bow, and push the cables down on each side and then push the socket back. There was definitely a knack to this. The last thing you want is to tighten the screws up and find the squashing the cables inside. And if that was the case, it can cause a fault. Now here's something I didn't even know about was on the right hand side of the back box is something called a fixed lug, and the left side is a flexible lug, but also called a movable lug. So you screw in one end and the movable part allows you to adjust the front of the socket while you're screwing it on to try and get it level with the spirit level, and then screw it tight. And after absolutely loving that lesson so much, I then applied my newly learnt skills and did the opposite one, still under supervision. And there's definitely going to be a couple of USB ones around other parts of the house. So if there's any electricians watching this, I'm really curious what you thought, what you do differently and things like that. But yeah, it's given me a little bit of confidence to just try and do any replacements in the future, cautiously, because I would like to change some of the ones at our house with USB ones. So yeah, hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.